Hey, Evans. Our friend over at Faith and Practice has made another response. John Rogers has responded to the video that I did in response to his video, which was a response to my video, Proof of Creationism. For those of you who've seen this, you already know. John conceded the idea that creationism would not have any proof, and it's not part of any kind of science, and we were all very happy with that. Then tried to suggest that evolution was not scientific. In the new video, he's basically going, you know what, forget it. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'll give you that. All right. And then he even backs up and he says he wanted to steer away from using various terms, and then he goes on to talking about non-life, and then there came life, and went on avoiding any terms. There is actually a term for that one, John. It's not a bad word. It's called abiogenesis, right? Which simply means, you break down the word, bio, life, genesis, beginning, a, meaning, without, stick it all together. That is when did non-living things become living things? You can even use it in a religious term. You can even say that the abiogenesis was when God breathed the breath of life into the dust and created Adam. You can even use it there. Abiogenesis, easy word to use. So there you go. He goes on to say that we're not sure how that happened. Well, it depends on how you mean that, John. We actually have a pretty solid idea. We were working out the details. I mentioned this in the last video that they just recently were able to reproduce this, how RNA would have formed by creating the one of the three parts that go into making the self-replicating RNA structure. They've gotten that far. They know how lipids form to create a cell wall. They know all these different things. So that we're actually pretty sure about how it happened. We're just trying to solidify and prove it. That's a different thing. But you said, hey, I'll give you that too. Okay. Here's my problem with that, John. You don't buy that. You don't understand that. You just don't want to talk about it. My problem with that is that you're cowering away from the fight to try and get to a stronghold that you think you have. Okay, instead of facing the facts that we actually do understand this process pretty doggone well. And to avoid this avoids the entire issue. Not to mention the fact that it's very fascinating stuff, and I think you would enjoy learning about it. John, you seem like a really nice guy. You seem down to earth. I really think that you're the kind of guy that, if we were to meet face to face, there would not be, we get along pretty well. Don't be scared of learning. Don't shy away from it. Allow you. You admitted that there are some things that you probably should have done and changed. That's awesome, and it's great. I've had to do that myself. So, geez, I made a mistake there. Not a problem. It's not a big deal. We're all human, right? But anyway, you say you don't want to detract from your message. You want to get to your message. So that's cool. Let's move on to your message. You wanted to know, when was the point of this idea of personality introduced? Actually, that comes very, very late in the game. However, you then must identify exactly what that means. When you say goals and aspirations, well, the goal of a Tyrannosaurus Rex was to feed. That was his goal, and he knew that's what he wanted to do. But I know that's not what you mean. You mean in a grander scale, but there's not much difference in the grander scale. As our brains became more and more intelligent, we just simply were able to compound the things we wanted. This is again, if you just simply understand the science behind it, it's not a mystery. It's not a question. So you're probably going to want to get away from this one too. So let's just move on to the rest of what you try and point out, and that is, you said that no one was an accident. John, you don't know everybody. You don't know everyone's situation. And to suggest that the 6 billion people on this planet, and that all of them are special, well, as the saying goes from The Incredibles, when everyone is, well, we'll adjust a little bit. When everyone is special, no one is. That just becomes right the norm. We'll come back to that. You talked about all the noise of religion. Get away from the. So again, it seems like we've got some things that we have in common. We understand how religion can blind people, make them do things that they wouldn't normally do, act in ways that they should not act. So again, it sounds like there's some common ground there. But then you turned right back around and you went to say, and you just declared. Now, John, for someone who knows so little about science, for you to declare, the scientists don't have an answer to that. You have clearly displayed previously that you have no idea what scientists have answers to. Because you don't know the answer to that doesn't mean there isn't an answer. Okay? So what is it that he thinks they don't have an answer for? The wonder of the world. Very generic response, but in all reality, science does have an understanding of all those things that create the wonder of the world. Why does man look out into the stars? Well, it's very simple. It's 3 letters, comes together and forms a great question that is absolutely imperative in science. That word, why? Why are things the way that they are? Another great 3-letter word that could be used, how? How did that happen? These 2 different 3-letter words create such fantastic reaches that the human mind has been able to accomplish by simply asking why and how. We're able to put together this idea of what we want to know, scientifically test it, and come up with an actual answer. Instead of just throwing up our hands and go, wow, it must have been a God. When you change from why and how, and instead you ask who, you are making a presumption that a who was involved. Why can still include a who. How can still include a who. But it doesn't necessarily have to have a who. But to suddenly jump to a who just doesn't work for me. I have no problem asking why. I have no problem asking how. You're not going to convince me of who until you prove to me that a who was involved. Okay? And now I sound like I'm talking about Dr. Seuss. Anyway, the wonders of the world, this is not a wonder as far as what you're talking about. And then you return to your idea that there's a purpose to your life. You're here for a reason. John, let me give you a few examples of why I think that's absolute crap. A friend of mine, a friend of my wife's that I know and am also friendly with, recently went through a very, very difficult pregnancy. Managed to deliver the child. Child didn't make it. What was the purpose of that child's life? You tell me. What was the purpose of that? Created a financial hardship, an emotional hardship, and an end result of nothing positive. Okay? What about children that are born into third world countries that die in a sufferable death? Just a horrible, horrible death. And no one even knows about it. What was their purpose of life? You can't just simply throw out things like this and expect anyone with a critical mind. And understand, I'm not saying it's not a stab at anybody for being unintelligent if they buy it. It's simply someone who has a critical mind, someone who will go, wait a minute, what about this? We're all going to pick up on that. You can't say everyone has a purpose to their life without declaring what that purpose is, and then allow me to prove to you that that purpose doesn't happen by changing the purpose. This gets to the whole free will versus God's will argument, and it fails. It will break down to you, and you'll find that yourself. But anyway, again, John, I think you seem like a nice fella. I appreciate the response. I'm sorry if I bored people by rambling on. You kind of took me back to my early days on YouTube when I just kind of rambled on for 10 minutes, and I see that I've done it again. But anyway, I guess that'll wrap up our conversation more than likely. Don't take my word for it. Think for yourself.